New here with a new perspective for you. One that is polymorphic, one that is multidimensional, but the topic, it goes through all of those dimensions at one. We're talking about the age of plastic. When did it start? Well, when you start looking at it from a second dimensional perspective, this is one of the biggest egregores, Nicki Minaj. Now, I know many may be saying, why would you say that she's in the 2D? I mean, have any of you really met her? How do we know that she's even a real person? Or is this a second dimensional being, frequency, spirit, that you've allowed to inhabit your home through her music, her voice? You just put a voice to this face, but you don't know if this person actually exists. If this is an actual person like you and I. I mean, ever since she hit the screen, this was her agenda. Plastic. To make you plastic. Remember, she represented a Barbie doll that was plastic. Here she's a cyborg, part human, part plastic. This is a frequency or an egregore or a spirit. They're all the same thing. Two-dimensional beings that you've allowed to inhabit and influence your third-dimensional perspectives. The biggest one is Nicki Minaj. Number one bitch that gotta go. For sure, for sure, for sure. And by the time I'm done with this video, you'll agree with me. So, like I said, this video is about plastic, and I will be talking about plastic that's in the makeup, but I wanted to start first at what influenced you. And that would again be this egregore here, Nicki Minaj. She was the queen of plastic ever since she hit the screen. You know, if you don't got it, then buy it. She was really one of the biggest faces that influenced millions of women in the 3D to do plastic surgery. I mean, it started with the ass, and then it was the lips, then it was the nose, then it's teeth. But it's everything. It's just change everything. Don't be happy with what you got. Don't even try to work that shot. Just switch it up. Switch it up. We don't need that girl on the left. We need something like that on the right. I mean, this just ain't right. How you go from this to this? That's like day and night. That's what I'm saying though. This was one of the main egregores. See, just because she did this, she smiled. This is a witch. But you guys can't see that. Look at all the different surgeries that she did. This is what she represented in the eyes of every woman who wants to consciously or subconsciously admit it. Nicki Minaj is the reason why cosmetics really blew up, because it was all about altering your state. If you're not happy with something, then just buy it. And that's basically what she represented. And one of the main videos that actually shows this is this music video right here. David Guetta, Turn Me On. I mean, I know I can't actually play it because of the copyrights and everything, but if you could just pause and go through some of the different pictures in this, you would see that this was a ritual showing you that she was 2D, that she was a cyborg, that she probably is plastic. Even if she's in the third dimension, she probably is part silicone and not really a carbon-based being. I mean, this was a ritual that really showed it to you, if you had the eyes to see it, that is. She had the influence. Now, like I said, this video isn't about Nicki Minaj at all. I'm just showing you why so many people were influenced to do the things like nails, lashes. It was because of this second dimension egregore. It was because of this spirit, this demon, this daemon that you allowed to influence you. And the biggest one of them all was her, because nothing about her, in the end of it, nothing about her is real. You know, she went from head to toe literally plastic. The lashes, the face, the nose, the lips, the body, the shape, everything. Her entire being is plastic, is what I'm trying to show you. And so when you talk about why it is women were influenced, why did she bite the apple? It is because she allowed herself to see this and think she needed to do the same thing. So that was the second dimensional daemon that got women into, you know, this whole ideology of plastic. Nicki Minaj was the biggest one for sure. For sure. Now, I know y'all don't have that long of an attention span, so let me get on into it. That's the second dimension. Now I'm talking about the third dimension of plastic and how you then started to implement that in your everyday is in the cosmetics. The cosmetics are filled with different types of plastic. And the one we're going to be talking about today is polyethylene or polythene. It's the most common plastic that's used. It's a polymer. It's used in packaging. You know, little plastic beads that you put in the, when you about to send something FedEx, UPS, that plastic. Polyethylene. But polyethylene is not only used, you know, for packaging. This is the plastic that's also used in your makeup. Yeah. You know, that MAC, MAC is full of it. I mean, you should have expected that. I had a past video that I just did about dimethicone. That's one of the main ingredients that you find in Fenty's makeup, but I mean, MAC got Fenty beat. Look at how many dimethicones they have in here. We got 1 PEG 10 dimethicone, then you got dimethicone again, and then you got dimethicone PEG 10 15 cross polymer. A cross polymer in makeup, guys. We'll be talking about these different polymers. Then you got dimethicone PEG 10 cross polymer again. Then you got the PPG-18 dimethicone. Then you got a dimethicone cross polymer again. Wow. They must be wanting to, you know, really keep something intact with this dimethicone. I mean, how much silicone do you need in the makeup? I thought I was just putting it on for one-time usage. This seems like I'm putting it on forever. You got about 6, 7 different types of dimethicone, all in one little foundation called Studio Fix. $35, but the amount of nanotechnology they put into this, I mean, it must not be about the $35. It's about something else. So again, this video is not about dimethicone. It's actually about PEG, P-E-G, that part that comes before, because remember I said polyethylene. Well, polyethylene is PEG. It's just a glycerol that's added to it, and we're going to get into all of that. MAC, though, as you can see, has several different PEGs, PEG 10. But PEG 10, or PEG in general, is a compound that is heavily used in nanotechnology. And so this is not new news that PEG is found in cosmetics. You can see here that there's a dozen of PEG compounds that are found in cosmetics, and the reason why they're considered dangerous is because you have ethylene oxide that is a known human carcinogen, and you have I4-dioxane that's a possible human carcinogen. So both of these are dealing with PEG compounds. So it's known that it's carcinogenic, but it's still in your makeup. Why? Because, well, it's a penetration enhancer. It increases the permeability of the skin to allow greater absorption of the product. Yeah, you want it to look really nice and smooth, right? Well, you need a little PEG in there. It's going to really absorb into your skin, right? That's what you wanted. Polyethylene, or you even have propylene glycol. That's a related chemical that's also used for the same reasons of quote-unquote penetration. Okay, so now keeping this in mind, I want you to know this. When we talk about PEG, again, that's polyethylene glycol, a polymer used specifically for, used for a lot of different things. When you type it in here, you'll see that again, it's used in a lot of different products, from skincare, cosmetics, cleaners, baby powders. It's an abbreviation of polyethylene glycol. So these are different compounds. It's not just one thing. It's multiple different compounds that you can find, and they're used in your cosmetics in different ways. So anyways, what I wanted to talk about were how these PEGs are used in nanotechnology specifically. And then you'll start to see why are they really being used in makeup, because it's way bigger than that. So you see that it's used in cosmetics, shampoos, so not only cosmetics, also for your hair. And it's for surfactants is what they'll tell you, emulsifying agents. And because you don't really understand what that means, hopefully in this video you'll learn a little bit of that science. Because you don't know that, you just fall for it and say, okay, yeah, I guess I'll use this shampoo because it's working. And they know that as long as it works, you won't really question it. But here's the part that you should have questioned, is these PEGs, right? These polyethylene glycol micelles. You'll see here, this article is about nanoparticles. Are they safe for the brain? So due to the brain-blood barrier, the protective barrier separating the nervous tissue from the blood circulation, charged hydrophilic drug molecules usually cannot reach the brain because they're hydrophilic, so they're more fat-loving. They don't really like water. But what can happen is, you know, those who have been working in these fields, they found a new way to get it across the blood-brain barrier, and it's using nanoparticles like polyethylene glycol. Wait a minute, so you're saying that those in the field of nanotechnology, those who are looking to do micro electrodes, they're using the same thing that's in my makeup to cross the blood-brain barrier? Yes. So, you know, that last time that you put this MAC on and you just thought it was MAC. You just thought it was going on the top layer. You wash it off with a little water. You thought it was all gone. No, not at all. We're talking about polyethylene glycol that is able to cross the blood-brain barrier, and these nanoparticles are actually using this to do so. Yeah, this video is just getting started. So let's get into the main part of this conversation. We're going to tie it back to the PEGs, but let's start off with a bit more on the science. So when we're talking about nanoparticles, right? This video is about how these nanoparticles are being used for drug delivery to the brain. So I found this part of this article interesting because, again, if we're talking about plastic, this plastic is being used on a nanoparticle scale to deliver something across the blood-brain barrier. In this case, it can be used for drugs. So that means that it can also be used for other things, right? Okay, so let's talk about this for a minute. Nanoparticles for drug delivery to the brain is a method of transporting drug molecules across the blood-brain barrier. They cross the BBB and deliver pharmaceuticals to the brain for therapeutic treatment of neurological disorders. So it can be used for neurological disorders. Okay, we can see them, we can get that. Let's get into a bit more about these nanoparticles. So they range in size, it says here, from 10 to 1,000 nanometers or 1 micrometer. So they can be natural or artificial polymers, lipids, dendrimers, or micelles. We're going to talk about a few of these because some of these words, you know, you're seeing them here, and again, it can be natural or artificial. Some of these can be found in the body, some can't. But they're mimicking your natural system in order for it to work. And hopefully you'll see some of the science and understand that. So the types of nanoparticle for central nervous system drug delivery. Yeah, we can use nanoparticles to deliver drugs to your central nervous system. How can we do it? Well, we can do it with something that is lipid-based. Lipid-based meaning it's hydrophilic. It likes fat. So liposomes. One type of nanoparticle involves use of liposomes as drug molecule carriers. So this is a liposome here. And you'll see that it's a phospholipid bilayer, being that the outside is hydrophilic, it likes water, and the inside is hydrophobic. So you have these lipids, and they're in this bilayer, they're in this double layer, and it forms this ring to where the inside likes fat, but the outside likes water. And that liposome is actually found in the body in many different ways, because that liposome is actually the same way in which your cell membrane is made, or is, it's the same structure. It's in that same bilayer of phospholipids. So liposome, which it says here is a type of nanoparticle, is actually mimicking, because it's a lipid bilayer, that's the word I said here, lipid bilayer. So lipid bilayer, again, is just two layers of lipid molecules. Those are the lipid molecules there. These are just different pictures to show you the same thing. Just follow with me. The outside likes water, the inside likes fat. And so by forming that liposome, it's just another 3D picture of what we saw before, a 3D sketch of it. It's telling you that the inside likes fat, the outside likes water. These liposomes are very powerful though, because they can then travel through a lipid bilayer very easily. A lipid bilayer like what? Like your cell membrane, your cellular membrane. See, the cellular membrane is very potent because this part would be synonymous to the silicone that you see on a chip. That silicone becomes a semiconductor for all of the different electrodes that would be on top of the chip. Well, the same thing for the cell membrane, for the inside of the cell. It is the semiconductor, and then the nucleus are just different components that you would say are on the chip for different reasons. But the cellular membrane is actually what holds a lot of memory. So interesting enough, they are mimicking the cellular membrane with these different nanoparticles. That would work well. That means that the nanoparticles are going to work well. They're going to go right across the blood-brain barrier, and they'll be able to interact with the cells. They'll be able to go straight across the cellular membrane because they look just like it. They're liposomes. So these liposomes, here's another article that'll show you again what I just said, hydrophilic and hydrophobic. Now, how are they used for drug delivery? I just said it. Look, you can put the drug inside. The drug is crystallized in an aqueous fluid inside the liposome. There goes the DNA right there. The lipid bilayer is all around it. So right there in the middle, I can put a drug inside of the nanoparticle. And as this nanoparticle is floating across after you've ingested it, it will be able to go across the cellular membrane because this outside part here is familiar with it. It's hydrophilic, but it has no idea what's inside here. Inside here is what? A drug crystallized in an aqueous fluid. So that's the nanoparticle. This is showing you how they're actually working and what a nanoparticle would look like if you consumed it. It would have something that would be inside, and it would be inside this kind of form here. Why? Because in order for it to work, your cellular membrane again is the same way. When you talk about what is the cell membrane, you're talking about again what? Phospholipids. A lipid that is sitting to maintain the fluidity at various temperatures. You have these phospholipids, and they're typically in what? A bilayer, like this bilayer sheet right here. So that's a phospholipid. Just like the head, the tails of the lipid can affect the cellular membrane's properties. So I say this to say that the nanoparticles are mimicking your natural system. Now, when you talk about and when you get into information about the cellular membrane, you will start to learn more about lipids and how these lipids work. Your body is filled with different fatty acids, triglycerides, or lipids. You have sterol, or a common one is cholesterol, but this is a modified steroid, a steroid or a sterol. So when you look at this, you can actually create nanoparticles that are fat-loving and incorporate cholesterol, which they do. And I'm going to show you how this all comes back together. I'm just showing you what you already have, telling you a little bit about it, putting to the perspective together so you can see how they're mimicking your natural system in order for this to actually work. So cholesterol is a sterol. When you're talking about sterol, now you're just talking about this backbone that you have here, which would be 5 cycloheptanes with a pentane. That's that backdrop that you have right here. Looking at it from a molecular geometrical perspective, you have these 3 hexagons and a pentagon, and that makes up the backbone of all of your steroids and your sterols. One of the main ones that you'll have that's a backbone or a foundation of all of your hormones is, again, cholesterol. And cholesterol has that cyclopentane and a phenethrin. That phenethrin, again, would be these 3 right here. And this is a cyclopenta. So these are the cyclohexas, that's the cyclopenta. Again, looking at it from a geometrical perspective, I'm showing you these hexagons and these pentagons because in your makeup, you often see hexa, deca, but because you're not getting into the science of how these nanotechnologies work, it just flows right over you and you just keep on going. Come on, keep your attention with me. Keep it on. Sterols. What are these sterols? Cholesterol, it went through the col, but the sterol there, again, has this backdrop of the gonin, and I showed you the overall backdrop here, the cyclopentane and the cyclohexanes. These are, again, fat soluble. The reason I'm talking about these are because when they create a nanoparticle, that nanoparticle is hydrophilic, which means that it likes the fats. So it is going to try to work with a fat-loving steroid, cholesterol, one of the most common ones, but it is going to try to work with one of those steroid hormones in order for the system to actually ingest it and say, okay, I'll take this in and I'll let it inside, because you got to let them inside in order for it to even affect you. And so that was the whole point. They needed something like a micelle that had that hydrophilic head and the hydrophobic tail in order for it to get inside. It needed to form that system right there. So when I say micelle, when I say hydrophilic head, hydrophobic, just know that this is how your cellular membrane is already, that's the structure that it already has. That is the phospholipids in a bilayer sheet. They're creating nanoparticles that look just like it, and it's just an artificial version of what you already have. So your body accepts it, and it works. It works. I'm trying to get you to see that this shit works. That is the reason why no one is complaining, no one is dropping out dead. people's faces aren't, breaking out profusely, just a little bit. It's because it looks like the real thing, but it's not. Just like how, again, two-dimensional looks like the real thing, but it's not. You bring it to the 3D now, and now we're talking about these different things on a biological perspective, but it's the same thing. They're creating these different nanoparticles that are able to get past the lipid bilayer, or in other words, the cellular membrane. So these are called what you call micellar nanoparticles. And I'll get into this article, and it'll bring everything together. It'll tie it all together. So when you're talking about nanotechnology, again, we're talking about on a nanometer from 1 to 100 nanometers, even up to 1,000. But the smaller sometimes the better, so it can cross certain barriers. Cosmetic manufacturers use nanoscale size ingredients to provide better UV protection, deeper skin penetration. So it look good, right? That's what you're thinking. But the ability of nanoemulsion systems to form small micellar nanoparticles size with high surface area, allowing for the effective of bioactive components transport onto the skin. Oil and water nanoemulsion is playing a major role in the effective formulation of cosmetics such as makeup remover, the cleanser, the anti-aging lotions, sunscreens, and other water-based cosmetic formulations. So the objective of this review is to look at some of these different micellar nanoparticles. So wait, now we got this micellar nanoparticle word again. Remember, we're just simply talking about lipids that form this structure. This structure is what is called the micelle. That micelle means that all of the hydrophobic or fat-loving tails are pointed inward, and then outward you have the water-loving. So micelle nanoparticles are very useful in cosmetics because it can cross the blood-brain barrier. It has both. It likes both. The correct word for it would be, here it is, amphiphile. The Greek word amphis. What it really means is a chemical compound possessing both hydrophilic and lipophilic. It likes water and it likes fat. This is actually what you need and is necessary to make soap. When people think of soap, why does it work? It's because it's forming these little micelles. It has a hydrophilic and a hydrophobic component to it. It's these salted fatty acids, and these salted fatty acids are able to interact with both water and fat. And whenever it comes in contact with dirt or grease, what it will do is it'll form this micelle. And the dirt will get caught up in here. The water is on the outside, so that when you wash it off, it works. You wash off the dirt, and you also wash off whatever you used as that component, whatever that fatty acid was, that salted fatty acid in this case. That's essentially what soap is, rather. It's a salty fatty acid, and it's forming a micelle to where the dirt is getting caught up inside, and all of the fat-loving acid tails, they're all forming inside, and the outside is the water-loving part of it, so that when you wash it off with water, it just flows off with water. The soap just flows off. That is essentially how soap is working in real time. But when you talk about the name micelle, that is what it's doing. It's a micelle nanoparticle. So again, my point is showing you that how they're using something that your body naturally uses internally and even externally, the way that you're using it with soap. The reason it's working is because of its geometrical structures. In this case, it has both of these different components, one that likes water, one that likes fat. That is a phospholipid. But phospholipid micelles is just like your cellular membrane. That's how your cellular membrane is made up of. It's made up of a portion that likes fat and that likes water. So all of this is working again because it is built after you, who is the technology. You just didn't know that you were the technology the entire time. So now you're using micellar nanoparticles on your face, in your makeup. In the Western countries, it says that women are they were secretly using cosmetics in the 19th century, but now it's full without concealment, especially because of clones like Nicki Minaj. In the cosmetics arena, cosmeceuticals is widely known as a cosmetic product that is infused with biological active ingredients possessing therapeutic benefits for personal appearance. So nanotechnology, basically, nanocosmeceuticals, that's what you're using. But wait, there they go. There they go. Oh wait, you better get back to the show. Look at what they're using. The liposomes, solid lipid nanoparticles, I told you. What are the ones that are going to work? What are the ones that are going to provide better, UV protection, anti-aging effect? Because you know this is a lie, right? UV protection. You don't need protection from UV. That's another question. You need protection from the UV coming from your phone, not from the sun. But this is what they're going to tell you. So they're using these nanoparticles that are lipophilic. Micellar nanoparticles are what they're called. And you can see here is the application for the nanotechnology that was invented in the 1990s. Here's the full company on it. This is not something I'm making up. I'm just putting this together for you to see. For you to see it. Nanoparticle technology is here and it's real. And it's in your makeup. Polyethylene glycol. I mean, who else is going to do this type of research to find out what is this stuff actually doing? Not many. You don't have the attention span for it. But if you do, and if you're watching this, then maybe you can, learn and grow. Because did you know the micellar nanoparticles are the same ones in your makeup? It's the same ones in your makeup. And they're using that very ingredient, polyethylene glycol, because without that, they can't get across the blood-brain barrier. Boom. Look, this company here is called Nanocarrier, right? You can see the use of nanotechnology. Boom. Pharma company. What does it say right here? Application to cosmetics. You're the only one who doesn't know that you are the show. You are the one who's been using cosmetics with nanoparticles the entire time. They've been doing this for this company since 2012. But they've been doing this since 2010, which means what? It's been around since the 90s? Here it goes again, micellar nanoparticles. But a lot of them, what do they have to be made out of? Again, there it is, peg. They gonna peg you, they gonna peg your cellular membrane. Just pegging at it. Just keep pegging at it. Why? So they can get on in there. The pegs are able to get across the blood-brain barrier. They have both. They're hydrophilic and they're hydrophobic. They're what? Micellar nanoparticles made out of pegs. The same pegs that you see right here in the Mac. You don't see it one time, you see it multiple times. Peg. Are you seeing it? Are you believing it? You got nanoparticles all on your face, kid. You thought you weren't a cyborg. You're already there. They're hydrophilic, they're hydrophobic. You put it on your skin, it goes right through because it knows it. It knows that the polymers are hydrophilic, so they're able to, be in an aqueous environment, a water-loving environment. But you just don't know what's inside of that nanoparticle. What's inside of it? What are they transporting to the brain? Because it's able to go to specific places of the brain. It knows its lane. Hey, it gets even deeper than that. This video could go even deeper, because then we can talk about how these nanoparticles, how they react to light, UV. You're watching this from a screen that's emitting UV right now. Wait until you find out that the makeup particles, the nanoparticles that are put inside makeup, can be activated by your phone. I'm not making this up. Look at this right here. You can get a scholarship on it. Light responsive polymeric micellar nanoparticles. So these are nanoparticles that are micellar. We know what all of this is by now. That look, it says here, it changed in polarity of the micellar core from hydrophobic to hydrophilic under UV light. That means that it can be activated under what? UV light. Wait, what kind of UV light? What do you mean what kind of UV light? This kind of UV light. This kind of UV light. You put that makeup on, and then you turn on your screen and boom, it activates your makeup. See, I told you that my video, it'll take you polymorphic through one conversation. All we talked about so far was plastic. The second dimensional perspective of it, the third dimensional, and if I can give you the right quality, if I can get into the details of the third, then maybe we can actually start to see the 4D together. Do you all see what I just said here? The makeup is activated by UV light. They knew you were going to put it on, and then you were going to do what? You were going to get right. The lights was going to get bright, and you like, I'm going to show out tonight. The nanoparticles are reactive to UV light. Who would have known? Who would have known that this is what they wanted the entire time? I mean, this is just a protein called a polypoprotein. These are proteins that you naturally have, and they have one job. They transport lipids. And so these are very powerful, because if something were to bond to this type of protein, it would be able to possibly bring it into water-based circulation. Water-based circulation like what? Blood. So it would be able to cross that barrier, basically, if it were able to contact one of those proteins. Well, guess what? That already exists. Boom shakalaka. Solid lipid nanoparticles as a vehicle for brain-targeted drug delivery. And it's using what? The proteins you already have to deliver those solid lipid nanoparticles. That's what it's doing. And they can create artificial ones that'll do what? Ooh, it can target certain parts of the brain. Many potential therapeutic compounds for brain diseases fail to reach their molecular targets due to their impermeability of the blood-brain barrier. Well, not to worry, darling. We have nanotechnology that is able to improve compounds by enhancing the binding to cerebrovascular endothelium and translocation into the brain. All we got to do is adsorption of a polylipoprotein E4 onto the polysorbate 80 stabilized nanoparticles, and this will produce a protein corona, which will allow the specific targeting of the cerebrovascular endothelium. Boom. we can use the proteins that you already have, and we'll get those nanoparticles where we need them to go. This is all a part of the show, and it's because you didn't understand the two-dimensional. You couldn't see past her bullshit, and so she got you doing some bullshit. She got you wearing the lashes. She got you wearing the weave. She has you. This clone has you. How do you even know this is a real person, people? Who's to say this actually exists? Or is this just a cyborg in the digital that got you with a smile? Next thing you know, you over here in the 3D putting on makeup from MAC because you want to look like NICKI. And so now you putting on dimethicone and all types of pegs on your face. Now you're putting on all these different pegs, going crazy instead, manipulating your DNA, that shit going straight across the cell membrane, driving you insane, connecting to your cholesterol and your steroids, shifting your hormones, so now they don't know what to do anymore, but your hormones are helping your senses. So you got all this going on, and now these nanoparticles, they're forming micellars, so the list goes on. They're able to put the drug inside of the nanoparticles so your body doesn't even know what's going on. It's literally that type of bond where hydrophobically the drug is inside here, and then you got that corona on the outside. Your body won't even know the difference. Hydrophilic and hydrophobic. The reason it's called the micelle is because of the geometrical structure. That's just telling you that portion, but it's hydrophilic and hydrophobic. What else is hydrophilic and hydrophobic? Your cellular membrane. It was all built after you the entire time, and that's the reason why it's working. That's the reason why it's working, and the nanotechnology will continue to work, and the future for the humans will be this bright. It'll always be bright, UV light bright, because it'll be activated by the UV light, blue light. This is the reason why women are becoming cyborgs in real time. For those who can see it, this is new.